people probably going to join us while what we're doing today.
Sure.
So welcome to the New York Information Security Meetup slash the Cyber Guild. Uh, this is like part of the weekly session that I host, and I have the great pleasure to introduce the cybersecurity professional, Dustin. Would love to hear more about your background, how you got to the infosec, and it's just in general to get a glimpse of your everyday kind of activities. And what I'd like to get out of this conversation specifically is, you've been very successful in your career, and you had, there's always like these up and downs. People think that they start and then they become these superstars, and then we always talk about how the graphs look like a little bit squiggly. It's not a straight line up. So why don't we get started by just kind of having just a casual conversation about your background, how you started, Dustin, and how was kind of your first role into cyber, and then we go from there.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, David. I think so. I have got a little bit over 14 years of experience now in information security. I started out in 2005, 2006, working as an computer forensic examiner for one of the big accounting firms, and really it was an interesting time because computer forensics and digital forensics was really still in its infancy. It had just kind of in the previous 2 or 3 years really become a big kind of um, industry, and really started out doing a lot of investigations, a lot of technical work, and then ultimately, probably about 5 to 6 years in, really transitioned more into the information security data breach incident response DBIR kind of work, and then ultimately from that about 3 years ago moved more into the information security management and governance and risk and compliance kind of area. Really, a very much of an interest of mine was taking what I had learned from the technical and being able to help an organization um, mature its security, mature uh, governance, and really get to a state where they could learn a lot and develop a lot and become stronger as an organization.
Now, if you don't mind, let's kind of dissect that a bit. So, prior to you getting the kind of the forensics role, right? But all the way back to like 2005, 2006, did you go to school? Like, what was your kind of
So
background?
yeah, so my
Yeah.
my undergraduate background is in political science. I actually did went the law school route for a year. Realized after spending $30,000 I didn't have, that it wasn't the perfect fit for me. That I wanted to do something with computers. I had always been the kind of kid who had taken apart the VCR just to take apart the VCR. Um, Took apart, a graphing calculator that my parents had spent a lot of money on just to see how it worked inside. It was always kind of an interest. It was never something I had gotten formal training. I didn't go to school for information security. I didn't go to school for computing. Um, it was really something I almost happened upon. My father um, had spent most of his career in public accounting, and had interviewed somebody who was talking about the fact that there's this new field of computer forensics out there. And my dad came to me and said, this really sounded like, I did some research and it sounded like something you'd be perfect at doing. So it was kind of almost by accident. I think it's very similar to the story a lot of people in information security have, which is they never started out intending to be part of the information security world. It's only very recently, in the last probably 5 or 6 years or so, that people have chosen this as a career path. But it wasn't something that growing up was, oh, I could be an information security person. it wasn't a thing. It wasn't something anybody thought of.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that there's the couple ingredients for a successful recipe. One is you are super curious, right? You're very curious about the kind of the outside world, right? You had the capacity to take things apart, and again, I'm pretty sure it was tough to put them back together, right? That graphing calculator was probably
I,
almost impossible.
I managed to get everything but maybe one or two screws. Didn't make my parents very happy, but I managed. They still worked after I took them apart and put
Right.
them back together.
Well, that's pretty good. So you didn't get reprimanded for that, and then you stumble upon kind of the this particular area, right? It's funny because again, a lot of times, and this is part of what I do here. A lot of people not don't realize how wide of an area cybersecurity is. There's so many different silos within the space. So you started forensics,
Yeah,
then today you're doing compliance and more of a management, right? Which is very, very different than being hands-on forensics and
it,
then also incident response.
yeah, it is. But at the same time, and I've spent a lot of time kind of contemplating this, but it's all risk management at the end of the day. It's all, it's going from technical helping it's all about helping an organization make better business decisions. Should I, is there enough evidence to support the fact that somebody took data out of the company? Did somebody take data that causes us a risk or not? Um, a lot of the work I did was on theft of trade secrets, so it's insider threat forensics essentially, which in 2008, 2009, during the economic downturn, became a very big thing where companies were looking to try to make sure that employees who were leaving weren't leaving with data that they should or shouldn't have, or if they did leave with data, to make sure that they didn't use that data. So I spent a lot of time testifying on cases and going to court to help organizations mitigate the risk that had occurred by giving somebody access to data. So it's all been this risk mitigation. It's only recently been a more of a strategic, less technical, more managerial position as opposed to a hands-on in the trenches finding out what's going on and answering questions. But to your point, it's always been there are innate skills like curiosity, like constantly wanting to learn, like being inquisitive, that are inane in a lot of the people who are in this industry, and is really the key factor. That doesn't matter what your background was, you have those skills or you don't, and you can leverage them. I like to tell people there's nothing I can learn technically, there's nothing I can't learn technically. There are certain things that you just have or don't have as kind of soft skills, as we call
Right, absolutely. And I think that obviously making having you that technical background and experience, hands-on experience really helps you now in these days when you have more of an oversight over the security programs, right? So you have that kind of that hands-on experience that will gives you an idea of what is actually happening. Because a lot of times I think you know people are not aware exactly what even incidents are, what type of incidents are out there, what type of risk these companies face. And as you mentioned, you were exposed to some very cardinal area within the spaces with IP theft, inside threat, right? And then we're a knowledge-based economy, so intellectual property is really everything. That's the advantage of one company over another, even if they're in the same space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing, or the key thing, is that being technical, having that technical background. First of all, everybody loves hearing war stories, and I can give war stories, and have
We'll get
stories.
into that in a second, Dustin.
Yeah, have stories about interesting things that just make you go, huh. But being able to use those stories and relate those stories to somebody makes it that much easier, to go into the board of directors who are not technical people and say, I've seen this before. This is not just me saying we should have ransomware protection because we should have ransomware protection and give me $100,000, but I've seen what happens to an organization. And here's what we need to do to protect ourselves from being a victim.
Yeah, I love that. So why don't we, since you mentioned some war stories and you mentioned you were, an expert witness in court and so on, any kind of stories that spring to mind that were really affected you, throughout your career that kind of are very memorable that you can like share with us?
Yeah. We always joke, and I hear people joke about all the time, the plain text password document sitting on the desktop. And I always had heard the stories, and I was like, yeah, no one really does that. Until I found somebody who, in an insider threat case, had laid out on a Word document on their desktop called passwords.doc the explanation of all of their passwords. Not only had they put the username and password and the site it was associated with, but they had put a nice paragraph explanation of what it was that was on there and what they wanted their assistant to do should this person get caught doing what they were doing. So it would say something like, I was using eBay to sell these items, and please go in and delete this account and make sure that you remove the following things from there, like my credit card information and stuff, and make sure that you notify these 5 people where they can contact me in the future. That one was memorable. I always found interesting, another one, which was, a case I testified on where an individual had left an organization and literally went across the street to another organization, took a bunch of documents and said, I always store documents. I've maintained a library of documents I've created over the years. It's no big deal. It's not a problem, except that every document that they had taken in the bottom corner said company property, confidential, internal use only. So it was one of those where it was like, you really can't say that you knew what you were doing was okay if the document itself has that label in it.
And so what happened? Was the company that the person left retaliated? How did they find out about it?
Yeah, they filed for a temporary restraining order to basically stop this person from being able to take the similar position at the new company. And the court ultimately ruled that, yes, in fact, this person had taken stuff that they weren't supposed to do, had violated their non-compete, and therefore that person needed to not be allowed to fill the role that they had been hired at the new company for. So it has real world impact, and it's a funny story, but at the end of the day, it's also very sad because somebody lost their job as a result of something that was very much, preventable. And I saw a question, a really good question. I get that one a lot, which is a password protected Excel file a good way to store passwords? No. The short answer is no.
But I'll let you do it, Dustin.
Excel files are very easy passwords to crack. Yes, you can make a secure password, but people are notorious for creating passwords that are easy to remember and therefore easy to crack. We had a project when I was in graduate school for computer forensics where they would set up a mock office, and they said to us, a mock desk setup for an office, and they said to us, sitting in the desk chair, you can find this person's password without having to get up from this chair. And it's notorious. You see these reports, password, as much as we talk about securing your password and using a strong password, the most used password still is password 123. So is password protected Excel file the best? Probably not. The best way, the way I use a password manager like LastPass and allow it to automatically rotate my password for me. A lot of people now, and I use it as well, is the YubiKey. A nice little device I plug in that randomly generates a password for me. So I don't even know. My wife will ask me, what's your Gmail password or what's your Amazon password? I don't know. At any given point, I have no clue what my password is. I know the password that I have one very sophisticated password that has nothing to do with anything that was randomly generated. I memorized that one randomly generated password, and I never remember another password after that. Data breach occurs. I go in, I flip the password for the site, and that's it. So, there's such good technology out there now that's free or very inexpensive that honestly the days of the password protected Excel file really should be near their end.
Absolutely. And it looks like it still boils down to best practices, right? In simple stuff like, not storing anything in the clear,
Yeah.
having multi-factor authentication, MFA enabled, delegation of secure passwords, for more than one person, rights management, rollback access control, right? So it's like all kind of simple tactics that organization can potentially protect them. So it's a really great bang for the buck, you know, in that respect.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, what would you say at the top? Three things that you're coming to an organization and you look at their security stance that they can potentially improve upon, without spending very large amounts of money on security controls.
Well, I mean, the number one, I mean, and this has been shown over and over and over and over again, almost ad nauseum in reports, is the number one risk to an organization are the people that work in the organization. You hire somebody and you kind of let them, once they're through the gate, you really aren't monitoring them the way that you should be. So some of it is, I mean, number one is security awareness. I mean, it's free or low cost or easy to do to just monitor and continually remind people what they should and shouldn't be doing. If they hear it over and over and over and over again, it's testing them. It's running simulated phishing campaigns. The organizations that I have worked in and worked for and worked with all have had very strong phishing test simulation programs, to the point that it makes you stop and think, hey, why am I getting this email about Netflix on my corporate account? Does that make sense? So seeing those, security awareness is a huge area. The other thing is using the tools you've got and using the things that are built into the tools you've got to maximize your security. So back to your point, a lot of people have Gmail accounts or Google based accounts, but don't turn on the MFA that's built in, that's free. That's an easy thing to turn on. Amazon has an MFA, has multi-factor authentication. It's free. Turn it on. It makes it that much harder. So there are, Microsoft Azure for organizations that are paying for it, has multi-factor authentication. You just got to turn it on. And it's part of it is also monitoring. You can't just simply leave people to their own devices. I mean, the statistics that are out there are 40 to 50% of all breaches and all occurrences are malicious insiders. They're people who have gotten on the inside that are doing bad things. But then you've got other statistics that are like 80 to 90% of ransomware attacks and of hacking based attacks start off with an email and a phishing campaign. So doing the little easy blocking and tackling, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes total sense. And now you've been tasked to come into an organization and build essentially kind of a new security practice, right? So
Yeah.
that's going to be the next role. So coming into the organization, what does your, 30, 60, 90 days look like for you? Like what, how do you, I mean, it's a big task, right? How do you kind of
Yeah,
take that over and, strip it down and into like, some tasks that you can do like on a daily basis, and how after all this, you're successful. Have you
yeah.
thought about?
So I think the first thing you've got to do is you've always got to do is identify your risks and conduct the business impact analysis. Figure out what are my risks and what happens if if the poop hits the fan. If it goes bad and everything gets messed up, what is the impact to the business of those risks? So and then once you've got those risks, then it's what can I do? What are the easy things? What are the basic things? What's the low hanging fruit that I can do to fix those things in the interim while working towards better policies and procedures,
Yes.
better standards, better technology. It's very, there are three ways, as we talk about in information security, there are three key areas that you can address: people, process, or technology. And it's really important that you focus on the people and the process first and not rely solely on technology, because the technology can be great and it can be hugely useful, but if the people aren't properly trained, if the people aren't in place to look at the technology, to make sure that to look at the environment, to set it up, and the processes aren't built into the organizational culture, all the technology in the world is just going to be a black box and a waste of time.
So this is great. So let's dissect this a bit. So you mentioned that you're going to the business and kind of trying to quantify the risk, right? That's, or uncover what the risks
Yeah.
are for the business if they, as you mentioned, quote unquote, poop hits the fan. Um, how would you go about doing that? And how do you make sure that whatever you uncover is the real deal and not, something that they not continuously aware of?
I think part of it is trust but verify. I think some of it is, sitting down with various business units and understanding what is it that each business unit in your organization does. You know, it's very, very easy to look at an organization as a whole and say, well, we do oil and gas, or we do energy, or we provide electricity, and and that's great. And there's easy identifiable risks based on that. But understanding that this business unit handles the information, taking the information and um, taking it and manipulating the data and analyzing the data and determining that the data, trending analysis of electrical information or volume information allows an organization, allows a person, allows somebody in a risk management role to go, okay, well, now I understand the type of data you're dealing with and what you're doing with it and the tools that you're using to do it. Hey, why are you sending this data to the cloud with customer information in it? Should you be doing that? Is that really a smart move? Is it really necessary? It's all about, again, it's all about understanding how the business unit does what they do and why they do what they do, and ultimately what the end goal is. Because if their goal is to do this and they're doing three other things in the process that have nothing to do with getting to the end goal, or that potentially could cause an issue or expose data, then you need to take the proper steps. It's all about protecting information, protecting data. At the end of the day, we don't protect systems, we protect data.
And how do you rank? Let's say you come across like, 10, risky items or risky processes, currently in the organization. How do you then rank and say, okay, let's deal with these three items first,
Which
and then take care of this stuff, other stuff later? Because you can't boil the ocean. You can't like deal with everything all at once.
You deal with the least expensive and the easiest one. No, no.
So you have a diagram where like like one side is
This
cost
one's too
and then
hard. You go down the list and you go, that one's too hard, not going to do it. That one's too hard, not going to do it. That one's too hard, not going to do it. Now, I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is it comes down to understanding what keeps the various stakeholders up at night. What are they most concerned about? A shareholder could care less about whether or not we are backing up data for in the event of a ransomware incident. They care about the fact that if we have a ransomware incident, it's going to affect the share price of the company, and that it's going to have a $7, an average of a $7 impact on the share price. That's what they're concerned about. So their concern is, how do we protect ourselves for spending the least amount of money to get the most amount of protection? So what are those easy things we can do? What are those inexpensive things we can do? What can we do to not have to boil the ocean, as you said? But also understanding that while protecting the stock price might be important to the shareholder, to the CISO might say, well, no, that's not really the most important thing. The most important thing is making sure that we have visibility into the environment. Okay, well, now that's the biggest risk, is making sure. So it really depends. It's a ranking based on who are you providing the information to, who is your end user of that information, such to say that your risks and which is most important are going to change very fluidly and very much based on who you're talking to.
and here's the thing, right? So let's say you've done that, right? You quantified, and then you decide to deal with the first item first, like the most urgent ones. How do you then go back and say, okay, I've been successful? Part of the problem with this cybersecurity programs is that if they are successful, nothing really happens. You're just doing well, and it's almost like insurance, right? And so then how do you come back and say, hey, look, I've done a great job. My security program that I put in place is now successful, and it can come back after, let's say, in 9 to 12 months, and maybe prove to the CISO that you've been successful, and show like a tremendous improvement from you taking the role on.
Couple of different metrics that you can use, and a lot of it's metrics and database. The first one that I would say is the Simpsons, the days without incident number. Nothing happened. The fact that we haven't had an incident can be a very good metric. I think the other thing is through objectives, and even but of surveying your employees and making sure, if employees are more are reporting more incidents, then that's a good metric to use, because that means that they're more aware of what is bad and what they should be reporting. If it's security awareness, it's how many people are failing or failing, what percentage of the organization is failing phish tests. Do you have a 5% failure rate? Is it a 2% failure rate? Is it a 50% failure rate? And showing the metrics on that. I mean, there are frameworks, there are baselines, there's the CIS, there's NIST, there are independent, ISO that you can get certified on. So I think it depends on the industry, but it's really showing metrics that are going to make sense to people, that are showing continuous improvement. So this month we had 5% of our employees who failed phish tests. Next month we go and we see that 2.5% failed, and we sent the same number of phish tests out and got the same result. Those types of metrics. And really, it's setting really good key performance indicators. How much money did I save the organization? I saved the organization, X amount of dollars because the average price of cost of an incident is XYZ, or I saved the organization this much money because they didn't have to invest in this technology or that technology.
Yeah, makes total sense. Again, anything you can measure, right?
Yeah, of course.
That has ability to basically, if you don't measure it, it's not there, right? That's kind of the saying. So you touched a bit about frameworks. Do you have particular frameworks that you use more or more fond of as opposed to others that you see like best bang for the buck?
I'm a big fan of NIST. I'm a big fan of the CIS, the Center for Internet Security's critical security controls. Mainly the critical security controls is good because it's 20, the top 20 overall things that an organization can do. And it gives very specific, if you do this, do this, go do this, create a software inventory, go create, go turn this on, go turn that on. Those are really good. And it gives you a good baseline. It gives you a good way to, if I do these three things, if I implement these three controls, then I'm going to get, this far. If I implement these 5 controls, I'm going to get this much farther. If I implement these 10 controls, I'm going to get that much farther. NIST is good. NIST is a nice generalized one. It's one that everybody kind of knows and everybody goes to. It's challenge the challenge with NIST is that if you're not in one of those critical infrastructure areas, there's a lot of area of NIST that's just not relevant to you, that's just not important. Critical security controls is a good one. The ISO 2700 standards are good as well. Being international standards, they're nice for if you're, a multinational organization and you want to have something that you can implement across the board. The challenge also comes in if you're regulated versus not, and regulated by certain things. So in the energy sector, we're regulated by NERC-CIP, the North American Energy Reliability Council. If you're in California, you're governed by the California Privacy Act. So you're governed by certain requirements there. If you're in the European Union, you're governed by GDPR. So, it's important to look at at the end of the day, it's important to look at your local jurisdictions and determine, is there something that forces me to do something a specific way? Am I in the defense industrial base where now CMMC is required? Or do I have some freedom? And if I have some freedom, then I'm going to tend to go towards the frameworks that are the easiest to implement and the most actionable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sorry, I got my video here got lost. Okay. Yeah, so it makes total sense. In kind of like just to kind of wrap up, we have a few more minutes. I wanted to just talk a bit about, so you mentioned people, process, and technology. So why don't we talk a bit about the kind of last, line of defense, the technology piece of it. Are there any particular technologies that that of that are coming down the pipe that you are excited about, in cyberspace? Any technologies that you think that are already there and are very reliable and you should, companies should adopt?
Yeah, I mean, if a company doesn't have a strong enterprise detection response tool, EDR tool, that's a real shortcoming, because whether or not, the nice thing about it is whether or not my corporate laptop is on the corporate network at any time, because it is associated because the serial number is associated with a cloud-based enterprise detection response tool, my company knows what's going on that laptop. I can be monitoring it using rules-based monitoring and analysis, user-based analysis. So they know what I'm doing. They can at least identify what's going on. Um, Obviously, having good firewall visibility, having good network flow visibility is important. Um, Having a strong um, governance, risk, and compliance tool is also good. Having an area where policies are that they can be shared easily. Having a control baseline using things like CIS has their own control baselining tool that that you can use to run it against the system and say, well, this system's got 5 of the 6 controls in place, and here's where the gaps are. Um, Vulnerability threat management tools is also important. A Rapid 7, a penetration testing tool is also important. I mean, having if you're going to rely on technology, you want to make sure that you're covering as much of the landscape and the footprint as you can. The nice thing is, especially with a lot of organizations being Microsoft Azure and Windows based, is that a lot of this technology exists within the Microsoft stack. So you're already getting it. So turning it on makes a whole lot of sense. There are a lot of really great tools out there as well that are ready out of the box. But I'm very hesitant. I'm always very hesitant about relying purely on technology or relying primarily on technology, because at the end of the day, the technology can only be so smart, and it takes a strong security operations center security engineer really looking at things and digesting it and manipulating the data and looking at it and analyzing it and saying, oh no, this is bad. There is a lot of automation that is in play, a lot of automation coming down the pipe, but at the end of the day, the humans are the problem, and the humans are also the solution.
Dustin is with tremendous insight. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. Where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, search by Dustin Sachs, Sachs. And that's really, that's the easiest way. I'm definitely always on LinkedIn. I have my Gmail account is linked through LinkedIn as well. So certainly, look there, and happy to always connect with people and answer questions and provide insight.
Awesome. That was great. And again, you're in Texas, right? So
Yes.
I hopefully the sky is going to open up and New York City is going to become more available to people, and maybe we'll get to see you in person in New York City sometime.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe this time next year.
Yeah.
So
Great.
thank you again for joining the group. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of the week. Take care, all.